All right. Well, thanks for being here with us today. I just wanted to introduce myself, and then I'll let my co-presenter introduce himself as well. My name is Dr. Heather Strong, and I am an assistant professor at Trinity Western University, which is located in Langley, BC.
My name is Jim Parsons. I've been working with Heather for the past year and a little bit now, although I was just thinking we've never actually met in person. But we've been working closely on this project for just over a year. And I was a professor at the University of Alberta starting in 1975 and worked for 41 years there before I retired on Vancouver Island. And these days I teach mostly research design at a number of different universities in Western Canada. And I'm fortunate enough to work with Heather on this particular project.
All right. So the topic of our project or our presentation today is Reshaping Global Leadership Capstone Project. So I'm just going to talk about where we are at and where we've come from, and then we'll talk about some best practices at the end. So we all know that the internationalization of Canadian higher education is increasing at an expedited rate. And currently, Canada ranks third in international student populations across the world. One of the more popular destinations for international students in Canada is British Columbia. And in BC, we have 11 public universities and 5 private universities. Now, Trinity Western University is one of the private universities in BC, offering both online and face-to-face classes to about 4,000 students, 50% of whom are international students. So Dr. Parsons and I both teach in the Master of Leadership program at Trinity Western, and this program attracts a large number of international students every year. And recently, our program numbers have actually doubled in size, and with the increase in these numbers and our desire to help students complete their degrees, this encouraged us to rethink and reshape the way our capstone projects are designed and delivered in our program. So in this presentation, we're going to share the story of our work to reshape our capstone project and what we've learned about the successes and failures that we've encountered along the way. So let me give you a picture of where we are and where we were, and then we'll talk about what we're doing right now. So originally, about a year ago, the capstone in our project in our program was designed as an independent, self-paced final paper that students had to work on. Originally, students worked one-on-one with a faculty advisor over 6 advising sessions and submitted 6 different assignments along the way. And I had been an advisor in the program and also the capstone coordinator for our program. And I found it really challenging for new advisors to understand what was expected of them and for students to understand what they needed to do. So I felt the process that we were using wasn't clear and it needed to be improved. So in the fall of 2019, I just noticed that there was a large increase in number of our students joining our program. And I saw this as an opportunity to redesign our capstone courses so that our students would have clear instructions, clear expectations, and have a user-friendly collaborative experience. Now, I also noticed that among the various advisors that we had about 25 different advisors at that time, that there were differences in quality standards and expectations. And one of the major frustrations that advisors were having was helping students engage in a project that was grounded in a current leadership context or problem. Because most of our students were international students and they were not currently working in a leadership context. So there didn't seem to be accountability with the student final papers. Advisors just submitted their grades based on their own assessment of the work. So when our numbers started to increase, our advisor numbers also increased. And like I'd mentioned, there were about 25 advisors in our program. And the students were actually also having difficulty completing their projects. So their projects weren't built into any kind of course context. It was designed so that students would complete their assignments as they were working through their coursework within our program. So we found that students were pushing their assignments for their capstone project to the end of the program. And in some cases, students were just delaying graduation and not completing the program because of these looming assignments that they had to finish.
Well, can I jump in here, Heather? And Heather and I usually do this. We teach together. So often Heather does the play-by-play and I do the color. But my own background is that I was one of the first people at the University of Alberta to introduce a hybrid or an online graduate program. And my problem then was the very same problem that Trinity Western was having, in that most graduate programs for anyone, including Western students or international students or whatever, really are based on the fact that the student has to go out and really be proactive in pushing their own agenda so that they can get through the project. People do courses and then they have time off typically to finish their capstone project, whether it's a thesis or whatever. And that I found that about 40% of all the graduate students at the University of Alberta actually completed. And Trinity Western was in the same boat. Its graduate students, whether they were international or otherwise, simply weren't completing the program. So Heather was working on this and I was working on it from another thing. We hadn't met yet, but I was encouraging the university to do just the simple thing of including making the courses, making the parts of the capstone project parts of the courses, because I had come from a situation at the University of Alberta where we went from about 43% of our graduate students graduating to I think 256 graduate students in a row graduated because we had just made some simple changes. So Heather is working on this from one aspect. Jim is coming at it from another aspect. And now we get together, and this is the program that we've sort of have been working on for the past year and creating so that we can be more proactive in starting and managing and encouraging and being proactive as instructors to help the graduate students stay on track. We really want them to complete this program.
So the mission of our Masters in Leadership program at Trinity Western University is to develop authentic individuals who, as a way of life, demonstrate transformational servant leadership. And by doing so, are able to emerge as leaders to become confident and effective servant leaders for the 21st century. So I'm going to let Jim speak to the redesign and how it speaks to the mission and purpose.
I'm an action researcher. I'm an applied researcher, and I've been doing research for about the past 35 years or so. And one of the things I found about action research is that it's always collaborative. It always encourages action, and it really works to solve problems, which fits right in to the mission statement of Trinity Western University, and that is to actually be impactful. As Joel Westheimer used to say I wrote once from the University of Ottawa, it's good research. And by good research, it means it's done well, but it also impacts the world in a positive way. And that's the ethos of the university's research that we want to do and that we're trying to impact in the program that we're doing.
So it was our desire to develop something that enabled students to share their leadership journey because we believe it's essential for improving their leadership practice from not only the individual level of the leader, but also through to the organizations that they will have impacted in their careers. So this is what we have designed. Our new capstone courses are practical, they're interactive, and they really been designed to assist our students in developing, implementing, and sharing their own journey through the assignments that they will have impacted in their careers. So this is what we have designed. Our new capstone courses are practical, they're interactive, and they've really been designed to assist our students in developing, implementing, and sharing their own journey through the MA Leadership Program. And this journey is shared through two distinct processes. First, through creating an e-portfolio, and then second, through developing a course-based action research project. So both of these processes are just going to be unpacked briefly now. So a personal e-portfolio is both a product and a process of collecting and reflecting on artifacts and what they represent. So in other words, an e-portfolio is a website that our students create where they share important assignments, projects, and reflections about their journey in the MA Leadership Program. And we know that based on research that e-portfolios have been identified as a high impact practice, particularly when they combine reflective thinking. They amplify both the positive benefits of the learning experiences of the student.
The action research part is really important as well. And if we run out of time, one of the takeaways I really encourage people to have is that one of the things that's really worked for us is doing both things at once. Heather brought the idea of an e-portfolio. I'd never thought of it. I always had pushed and encouraged and coached graduate students, and I've supervised more than 2,000 in my life to do action research because it was so collaborative, and it really was applied because I'm a teacher educator basically. But the idea of the e-portfolio as a way to share the action research and some do the now what with it, the so what and the now what were big. So that was a really impactful thing and something I didn't know anything about, but Heather brought, and it really has made a difference in the students' work and their confidence actually in building something that they hadn't been able to build before.
So an important part of the action research process, which Jim just shared, is the sharing of the artifacts of the inquiry that the researcher engages in. And this e-portfolio then becomes a place both for the researcher to internally reflect on their experiences, but then also invite external reflection from colleagues and other important stakeholders. So our leadership integration project has been redesigned to include both of these distinct yet very complementary processes. So I'm just going to talk about how we have practically designed these two courses just very briefly. And then we're going to talk about some best practices in terms of what we've learned. So our first capstone course is designed to be delivered over 10 weeks. Students at the beginning of the course work on developing an e-portfolio or a website using WordPress. After they've done some work on that e-portfolio, they engage in planning a course-based action research project. And ultimately, at the end of the course, prepare a course-based research ethics application. So the second course is designed to be delivered over 12 weeks. And during these 12 weeks, students collect and analyze their data. They write an action research report. They put the final pieces of their e-portfolio together, and then they prepare a final presentation for the end of these capstone courses. So I'm going to let Jim talk about our best practices and what we've learned.
It's a very short presentation, obviously, but there are a couple things that we did really well, and some of them we just struck on. The idea of doing small steps, because we did not want the research to seem overwhelming. And we did small steps. Each step moved from one thing to another. In fact, for example, we taught very clearly a review for article reviews that then people put into their e-portfolio, then were discussed by other people, and then they put it into the more formalized thing of the lit review. So we templated everything. We gave and videoed we taught and videoed the steps of doing each one of the things, and we kept things very small so that while people knew they were going to be doing a big project, the steps were very small. The templates were exceedingly important. I always called them hard shell outside, soft gooey insides, in the sense that the template was there, but honestly, what people put into the templates were different. We had good exemplars. That is, for everything that we did, if we asked them to do a literature review, we had a good exemplar for that. Right now, we're working with them on their findings, and we had meetings yesterday. We have a findings template. We also have a findings exemplar and that really worked. And the other things where we've had some very successful one-on-one meetings. And right now, Heather and I are excited because every one of the graduate students we've met with now have collected their data, they've analyzed it, they've gone through the steps, they own that data, and now they're really pushing towards findings. The most important one perhaps was the meeting we had one-on-one for the REB sessions. And the REB sessions, Heather is very fastidious and I'm not, except when it comes to writing. But she was very organized, and given my background in research, I was able to sort of figure out problems, and we worked with them on building their questions. We helped them edit those questions. We talked with them about the processes. They came out confident of what they could do, or at least having a plan. And then when they went into the plan and now they're doing their findings, we're very excited by the success of that. And we may run into some, but I think we've had 7 meetings in a row now. Every one of them were virtual high fives all over the place. The other thing that we have...
Jim, I have to interrupt because it's 15 minutes already. So I would just request both of you to, if it's possible, to wrap up.
I'll just go to what doesn't work. We've always been transparent with students, and just in a minute, we still haven't figured out everything. And some of the things, the grading practices are very difficult. We sometimes have students who don't show up, who are waiting. We're not quite sure how to do that. We're not every student is motivated to be proactive. Very many missed deadlines, and class size and workload are very difficult. We have huge class sizes and heavy workload. So we haven't figured everything out, but we've done some things very successfully here. And those are the things that we hope to share with others, and maybe I'll have other people help us figure out some of the difficulties we're still having.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we move to Marcia and
Maria.
Maria?
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Just give me a second.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you, Heather and Jim, by the way.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Still now, I don't see the third group of presenters. If we don't have them until Marcia and Maria finishes, we can have a longer Q&A session.
Wonderful. Sounds good. All right. Shall we?
Can we
Sorry?
begin?
Yeah, we can begin.
Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our presentation, Pivoting to Remote Learning, our practices for supporting non-traditional international students and part-time contract instructors. My name is Marcia McKenzie, and I am the academic specialist responsible for instructor development and the lead for the instructor professional development and support team, or Instructor PDS, at Extended Education at the University of Manitoba. At this time, I would also like to introduce you to my colleague and co-presenter, Maria Soloviova. She is the manager for IP programming, or intensive programming. Since COVID-19, we have worked collaboratively to ensure student success and instructional quality in our programming. Before we begin our session, I would like to acknowledge that the University of Manitoba campuses are located on the original lands of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Oji-Cree, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and on the homeland of the Métis Nation. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. To this effect, I would just like to share with you that while we were implementing new practices, the incorporation of Indigenous knowledge and perspectives were an integral part of the pivot to remote learning. Maria will now provide you with an overview of the session and an introduction to our audience and context.
Thank you, Marcia. Hello, everyone. So for today, our plan is to provide you with an introduction to extended education at University of Manitoba and also international program packages, and also discuss the student and instructor supports from both academic and administrative lenses, and towards the end, touch on the impact that we've noticed on the student success, and perhaps share some of our future thinking towards future program planning. So moving on, within extended education, we provide different type of programming, and that includes certificates, letters of accomplishment, non-degree credit. This programming is offered through Access program, which serve predominantly in Indigenous, newcomer, and low-income audiences, through flexible programming, which offers over 20 online part-time programs to domestic audience, and intensive programming, which offers 3 different face-to-face full-time program packages to internationally educated professionals from over 35 different countries. Our instructors within both flexible and intensive programming and extended education are industry leaders who are teaching with us on a contract part-time basis. Within our intensive program packages that we're focusing on our presentation on today, we have about 450 international students across 3 different terms, and approximately 150 students are graduating each term. IP offers 3 different program packages. Each program package consists of a certificate, a letter of accomplishment in the career preparation, academic language support, and industry experience. In those columns, you'll see the different types of the packages that we offer, and Marcia will discuss the challenges that we faced when we pivoted from face-to-face to remote learning, and strategies that we've implemented to address those challenges.
Thank you, Maria. So when we pivoted from face-to-face to remote learning, as a team, we immediately recognized that there would be student and instructor challenges regarding the change in modality, and that we needed to properly support and resource our students and instructors in order to ensure student success and instructional quality. We began by taking a look at the available resources that we had and how we could use those resources to support both students and instructors. At our disposal, we had UM-Learn, or D2L, the U of M's learning management system, and Cisco WebEx, which is the virtual collaboration tool available in UM-Learn. Armed with these 2 technologies, we focused on developing student and instructor resources and supports. Maria will now provide you with details on academic and administrative support, student supports, and resources.
Thank you, Marcia. So at heart of all of our initiatives and everything that we do was a desire to provide utmost support to our instructors and students, and ensure that there was a way for our students to stay connected with staff and peers during this pandemic and isolation. So we created a student support portal within the UM-Learn D2L course shell. The idea was to have a single hub accessible by all students across all terms, and this course within the UM-Learn provided links to resources, including program information, free activities that students could be doing from home. There was a lot of health and mental health resources, videos on job search recorded by our industry placement coordinators, frequently asked questions, and we had a calendar of upcoming events. We've also hosted student orientations where we conducted a series of live sessions with different teams within the university, our delivery team, Office of Student Advocacy, Student Accessibility Center, Health Insurance Representation, Industry Placement team. On top of that, we were also offering a series of online optional drop-in sessions, which included conversation drop-in with some suggested topics and a facilitator, sessions on Canadian content. So basically, we're asking students to watch the TV series And with an E, and provided them a space to discuss, to learn Canadian content and history through that. We had a social club with some virtual games and activities. We had WebEx practice sessions on preparation for the industry placement, where an industry placement coordinator would provide them with some tips and tricks on how to search for a job in a world of pandemic. We also had an attendance tracking system that existed prior to the pandemic that we used to, well, track attendance, but we decided to move that tool and use that tool to be able to identify and proactively follow up with at-risk students. So instructors were asked to pay attention to both attendance and in-class participation, and report any observations that they've seen to their program coordinators. And this allowed us to proactively reach out to students and identify best ways to support them to ensure their successful course completion. I apologize for some technical glitch, but I'll continue with my presentation, as I know Marcia is working on that. We also had a session with grandfather in residence, and that provided opportunities for our students to learn about Indigenous perspectives, hear firsthand experiences, have a time to reconnect with their inner self, and have a critical reflection on the current world situation, and receive some spiritual support. All of our students were also invited to our alumni panel discussion, where we had advice and suggestions provided by our graduates, and we had over 150 students attending the first session and providing a really good feedback on the session. It was really very positive. So looking at the academic initiatives that we had in place, we had made some changes to how we deliver the content. So keeping in mind that we have online programming and face-to-face programming, the content for online was a very there are a lot more content within the Learn course shell, and with the live offering, the expectation was for students to follow instructor-led sessions. So we decided to offer students the best of the both worlds. So in addition to full access to the self-paced content that would usually only be available to students taking courses online, we also asked all of our instructors to record all live sessions and make them available to the students. So that allowed for flexibility and addressing the issues around the technical challenges and also time zone challenges, because not all of our students are physically in Canada. We've also recruited teaching assistants to support our students through additional weekly group sessions and providing one-on-one support for subjects that we historically knew were more challenging for our students. While we had academic language support as a part of our initial package, we pivoted some of the sessions to ensure that we're addressing the critically needed skills. For example, we had a session on working and studying remotely, on working as a group, again, remotely, on academic integrity, because we saw a spike in cases of academic misconduct, and provided additional support for our students in understanding it. One of our big wins was an opportunity to move all of our industry placements to remote delivery. So our students are doing 5 to 7 weeks of full-time work with our hosts, and we were able to provide them with that opportunity to not only from the comfort of their homes, but also from the comfort of their home countries. I know Marcia will provide you with some details on the academic and administrative supports that we had for instructors, and also the resources that were developed and implemented.
Thank you, Maria. So with the pivot from face-to-face to remote learning as a unit, we quickly recognized that our part-time contract instructors would need to be supported administratively and pedagogically in order to maintain instructional quality. So in this session, I will share with you 2 initiatives. One being the Extended Education Instructor Portal, and 2 being the Instructor Orientation Week. So all these initiatives, or both these initiatives, were done with a high degree of collaboration between the IP delivery team, consisting of Maria and her 10 support staff, and the instructor professional development and support team, consisting of me and 2 other academics. So making use of Learn, both teams began to work on the EE Instructor Portal, which became a hub for both administrative and academic supports and resources for our part-time instructors. being mindful of the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's call to action, and in close consultation with our grandfather in residence, the instructor portal opens with the U of M's land acknowledgement and a section called Takuakan, or Something Holy, which contains Indigenous teachings for instructor self-development. For administrative supports and resources, the e-instructor portal contained program information and policies, as well as videos and text-based resources on IP delivery and Learn frequently asked questions. In addition, the resources included a checklist and a term to-do list. The checklist contained a list of start of term instructor administrative tasks or responsibilities, such as, reading the IP FAQs, attending the orientation, and completing the IP instructor orientation quiz. The term to-do list focused on teaching expectations and recommendations, such as creating an instructor welcome video and providing students with ongoing feedback. In the instructor portal, an instructor PDS section was created that contained pedagogical resources in a variety of mediums, so text and video, on topics such as instructor expectations and responsibilities with respect to students, promoting student engagement, promoting academic integrity, and using technology to enhance student learning. So building on those pedagogical topics and resources listed above, a variety of optional synchronous and interactive professional development sessions were offered using Learn's collaborative tool WebEx. In one term, we offered anywhere from 4 to 6 lunch hour sessions facilitated by a variety of either in-house or guest presenters, and each of those sessions were recorded. Over the past year, the sharing of best practices has not only helped our instructors with their pedagogical needs, but has also helped to create a sense of community among the instructors. Lastly, I just wanted to mention that in addition to the synchronous PD sessions, the instructor PDS team also provides one-on-one WebEx and pedagogical support sessions. Our new and improved...
sorry, Marcia, your time is up, so I would request that you wrap up.
Okay, thank you very much, Raka. So, Maria, did you want me just to jump ahead a little bit?
Sure.
To the closing. All I will say quickly, Raka, is that we went from a 2-hour session for orientation into a week-long session with our instructors. And there you can see the initiatives that we took. And sorry, Raka, Maria, if you just want to do the wrap-up quickly.
Sure. Thank you, and I apologize for the delay. What you see on the screen are the impacts that we've noticed based on the changes that we've made and on the initiatives that we've taken. That was corroborated by the feedback from both students and instructors. And as we're moving forward and looking at the future program planning, we're really looking to see if there is a possibility to have a hybrid delivery model with utilization of both synchronous and asynchronous models, which would hopefully increase the flexibility and student engagement. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. Sorry, Raka.
No problem. Thank you so much, Marcia and Maria. Now we would be moving to the next presentation by Michelle and Amy.
Hello. Greetings, everyone. So unfortunately, I've been on Zoom for the past year and a half, so I'm just trying to figure out how to share my screen.
Do you see the panel at the top where you have the participants, the chat, and if you move to the rightmost tab, that is the share content.
Oh, the arrow. I see. Thank you.
That arrow.
Thank you. Thank you. Just need one more moment.
Sure.
There it goes. It should be sharing. Amy, I might need you to.
Okay, let's see.
It's not. Oh, I think I'm sharing now. I'm just taking a. Oh, nope. Yeah.
Okay.
I might need you to.
No problem.
I did practice before everyone. I apologize for the hold up. We will speak quicker to make up this time.
Okay, bear with me one sec. I should be able to pull it up right here.
I think I have it.
Yes, we can see
Okay.
your screen.
Perfect. I myself do not see my screen, however. I don't see anything on screen.
I don't see. Do you see my screen now?
There it goes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay.
Is it large enough for all to see?
I think so.
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry.
It's excellent, yes.
My apologies. Zoom, and then it's like, oh, Teams. Okay, so welcome to our session titled Innovations in English Language Teaching for International Graduate Students in Haiti, Promoting Access and Research-Based Pedagogy in Remote Learning Texas. I'm Michelle Vital. This is my colleague, Amy Gooden, and we're both faculty at the Lesley University. But today we're going to talk about our roles as co-directors of the Institute for Capacity Strengthening, Inclusive Development, Education, and Leadership, or IDEAL, and specifically a project that we put together about 2 years ago now. So our institute provides English for academic purposes, global teaching and learning capacity building courses, and other professional development opportunities, as well as certificate program. And in our approach, which is cross-disciplinary, we focus on intercultural education, not just for students, but also educators, educational administrators, and community stakeholders at the university level, at the community organization level, and also the ministry or embassy level as well. Our approach is content-based or contextualized, so we don't just copy and paste our work into whatever country context that we're entering or partnering with, but rather tailoring our work to the context of our partner if they are outside of the US. Contextualized and authentic approach, as I noted, and it's both blended virtual teaching and learning, and when able, face-to-face if requested. So our problem and why we're here today. So the field of L2 or second language education has called for a sociocultural turn and pedagogical practices, but has wrestled with practical ways to promote active learning, especially in online learning environments. Though the pandemic that we are still in the midst of really forced everyone to figure it out and to be online. But we're focusing on a program that we launched in 2019 and continue to work on. And although the field of L2 teaching and learning has theoretically called for collaborative online learning, there's a dearth of successful and exemplary practical implementations responding to this call. And so today we're focused on our work in Haiti, and in the Haiti context, there's limited attainable access to high quality EAP courses, yet English is lingua franca really across the world and is nearly a prerequisite for graduate students to be able to engage in the international arena, particularly as it relates to scholarship. And to provide a little bit more of a context, when we'll focus on higher education in Haiti, and some of these statistics you'll see were cited is older, and it's because we've yet to be able to find more updated statistics related to higher education in Haiti. So this is what we know right now, that less than 1% of the Haitian population attends a university in Haiti. Of the less than 1% who study in Haiti, only 50% of those students eventually earn a university degree, and 84% of those university graduates leave Haiti post-graduation. And so that's critical if we consider the two main languages in Haiti are Haitian Creole and French, but many of the Haitian graduates go to, yes, some French-speaking countries, but also English-speaking countries as well. And then as of 2012, Haiti had the highest rate of brain drain per capita than other country in the world. So where they're taking all of their institutional knowledge with them, but also are required to have skills when they enter a new country context, whether it's US, Canada, or other parts of the Caribbean. And many alumni talk about the lack of capacity in the local job market and a mismatch between their training and positions available in Haiti as reasons for why they need to leave, which has resulted in an internal brain drain. And so our institute and the program we offered address this one tiny aspect of the higher education challenges in the country. So in the summer 2019, we offered a course titled Integrated English Skills for Academic Purposes with l'Institut des Sciences, des Technologies et des Études Avancées d'Haïti, or ISTIA. ISTIA is an innovative 6-campus higher education institution in Haiti, the first to offer accredited master's and doctorate programs in the country. The goal was to offer a variety of academic and social contexts for the use of English for them to use practically in various contexts. The course was two-hour synchronous online sessions a week, as well as asynchronous work. And what we contend was a distinguishing feature of this partnership, as well as for the students we engage with, was that we provided an opportunity for an engaged co-curricular and culturally sustaining approach to our language teaching.
Thank you, Dr. Vital. And good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Amy Gooden, and I had the pleasure of co-constructing this wonderful innovations and English language teaching project together with Dr. Vital. And so to speak to the particular programmatic design, the virtual format allowed us to use many active learning techniques. And again, in the spirit of transformative pedagogy, we were able to provide for our students opportunities to use language as a vehicle to discuss current and enduring questions and issues in their field, and to experiment with many of the post-secondary student-centered active learning strategies in US or English-speaking contexts. And some of the methods included group and individual oral and written assignments. So learning collaborative or student-centered and project-based approaches. Students would, for example, debate together or have Socratic seminars and role plays where they're able to expand their linguistic repertoire while at the same time deepening and broadening their content knowledge in the field of science, technology, engineering. And so they would debate topics such as environmental sustainability and balancing that with economic progress in the Caribbean region. And so the debate topics were not just out of the ether or out of a textbook, but as Dr. Michelle Vital noted, we really tried to match the texts and the methods and tasks to the needs of graduate students in Haiti who are majoring in the areas of science, technology, engineering, and math. And there really was a dearth of materials in the field of English language teaching that would adequately meet or address their language learning needs. So we developed these methods and tasks. Again, just adding on to that, students through transformative pedagogy were able to also practice critical analysis, critical examination of texts from multiple perspectives, and responding to information in many types of spoken English in different media, again, taking TED Talks or presentations from university professors in the discipline of science, technology, engineering, etc., and having them practice the skills of note-taking or practice writing research, journal writing, and the specific rhetorical conventions and discourse conventions. So it wasn't your average grammar decontextualized standardized grammar sort of drill and kill design, but rather trying to really harmoniously blend their language learning needs, regardless of the range. We had a broad range of proficiencies, as one can imagine. And so again, we had to differentiate both assessments as well as the text to meet students who are in, let's say, the pre-production stage of language in English, all the way to the advanced levels. We had an interactive discussion board, so part of the asynchronous work or offline work included participating in this interactive discussion board. So once again, they could broaden their technical vocabulary of the discipline while at the same time working on their written English communicative skills in a professional way. So again, socio-pragmatic aspects of language, what's appropriate formal versus informal vernacular based on the interlocutor or person with whom you're communicating. And finally, we were also able to, through various methods and approaches, have students use and practice incorporating the internet and distinguishing between credible and unreliable sources and print resources in their own academic work. And once more, so the famed Jim Cummins coined the term from Canada of transformative L2 pedagogy in an online context. So we contend that the innovative design of this model was based on the socio-cultural language acquisition principles of L2 pedagogy. And again, within the context of Haiti, where 90% of instruction is still rote memorization and teacher-centered, the one aspect of the design was through sociocultural language learning and sociocultural approaches to teaching and learning was another added layer. But more than that, it's learning language as a vehicle to lead, quite frankly, to what one might coin as a social mobility. For better or for worse, right now, such is the case that English is, as my colleague noted, the lingua franca, and 50 of the top academic journals, or quote unquote top academic journals worldwide, are published in English. So this was a necessity, and the programmatic design for the participants, and we really tried to align best practice in an innovative way to help the participants expand their language skills in order to be able to utilize it in their professional careers. And again, given the current context in Haiti, the virtual or technology aspect really allowed us to bring something that wouldn't otherwise at the moment perhaps be able to be so accessible. So we created opportunities within the curriculum for students to move beyond basic expressive English skills and focus on the development of socio and meta-linguistic skills. So thinking about their own patterns and mistakes of language, distinguishing between BICS and CALP, basic interpersonal communicative skills, and cognitive academic language proficiency, what's appropriate lingo for which context. Sociocultural aspects of language, discourse conventions. How do you write, as we say, a journal paper versus, let's say, crafting a memo or writing up project findings. So working again on self-editing. So there was compositional, English, grammar, vocabulary, but it was all integrated and content-based or contextualized within the field of graduate studies in science, technology, engineering, and math. And I'll be brief. I hope my time is okay here in my pacing. But in the curriculum itself allowed students to expand not only language and content knowledge, but from our findings, we believe that it supported graduate students' capacity to engage in critical virtual literacies, media literacies, research literacies, and even cross-cultural, expanding intercultural competencies or skills, communication skills, and at least awareness of similarities between and differences. And then technology was a game changer. So through asynchronous and synchronous learning, we offered students authentic language interactions and native language speaker modeling. We had peer-to-peer instruction, peer-to-peer feedback, interactive discussion boards, voice memos with feedback from instructors and peers, a Moodle type site with a repository of readings, activities, and assignments. And so most importantly, ISTEA has 6 sites around the country, and our students were located in Cap-Haïtien in the north, in Hanche, Jacmel, Lacaille, Port-au-Prince, and Saint-Marc. So again, the design itself with technology allowed us to increase audience membership, if you will, from disparate regions of the country, thereby granting access to our niche program. Michelle?
Yeah, I think we could, we've covered this. I think we could move on to the next slide. And the next slide after that. So what I will just say is that what was fortunate for us is that we were able to really bring our backgrounds into this process. My focus is on global higher education or international higher education. Dr. Gooden comes from the field of language teaching and learning, intercultural education. I'm a first generation American, daughter of Haitian immigrants, and I'm fluent in Haitian Creole. And Dr. Gooden comes from second generation Portuguese immigrant family. So I think collectively, our positionalities really enhanced our partnership with our colleagues in ISTEA. And critically, we recognize that without both of us coming together, the experience wouldn't have been as strong as it was. And also it helped us with our sort of culturally competence or cultural competence in understanding some things that might have seemed like a miscue for those who are not familiar with the cultural context, but for us served as teachable moments to talk about the differences in teaching and learning within the US versus the Haitian context. So finally, in our last slide, I'll just say that the pandemic has underscored the need to leverage technology in order to promote a collaborative and active learning context for international students in remote settings. But the last piece I'll just say is that equitable approach to partnership, particularly across country contexts, is especially critical and was the hallmark of our work with ISTEA and our colleagues there. So thank you for your time. Again, apologize for the technology issue at the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. That was perfectly on time.
Okay.
So now we will move on to our Q&A session. So the floor is open for questions. If you want, you can pop in the questions into the chat box. I'll read it out. Or if you want, you can just unmute yourself and begin.
This is Jim talking. One of the things that I've really been interested in is just what are the connections between the 3 presentations? And there seem to be 2 of them. One is, and I'm being a bit first draft thinking here, but one is the fact that all of the work in all 3 presentations was embedded in something, that there was a goal to do, but that goal was embedded in the kind of work that really allowed things to happen. And I thought that was quite nice. And the other one was the partnership between every one of the presentations was a partnership between 2 different people. And that I thought was really quite special, because I know Heather and I have always talked about how different we are and why that works. And it sounds like each other presentation had that same impact. And I think that the notion of pedagogy is so huge here. And I'm such an old guy that I actually taught a course with Paulo Freire in 1976. So I'm that old. But at the same time, you know, that sense of pedagogy just lays over so well. And I was thinking about my biggest problem. I worked in China for a while, working with an English language program. And the biggest change was to turn a written program into an oral program, because people had to really come out and be courageous and all sorts of things. and risk. And it sounds like that was present in a lot of the other work as well that I listened to. So although our topics weren't exactly the same, they did have they did resonate with some similarities around partnership and pedagogy. And I really quite appreciated that.
Any other thoughts? I can resonate with all these presentations so much because I am myself an international student. So I have been through all these experiences step by step. I did my Master's of Education in Administration and Leadership from Brock University. Then I joined the doctoral program at the joint PhD program in Educational Policy and Leadership again. So I have went through these language sessions. I have went through all these things during my own experience. So I connect to it so well.
Yes. Rocky, can I just ask you a quick question? And this is just me. Is
Sure.
Maureen Conley still around Brock University?
Sorry?
Is Maureen Conley still around Brock University that you know of?
No, I don't.
Okay, she was one of my grad students, and that was many, 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 many years ago. So
Okay.
I just had to ask.
I'm here since 2018.
Yeah.
So maybe it's before I joined Brock.
So I'll just say, Jim, I appreciate your talk about pedagogy or pedagogical approaches. I'm remembering an anecdote from Dr. Gooden and I where we were leading a session where we were asking students to sort of participate in a large group discussion. We posed, a question, and we're engaging our students. And there was a pause. And finally, one of the students said, "Why don't you're the teacher, you teach, like you tell us, right?" And so we really had to have a conversation about sort of our approach to teaching and learning, right? Where we were not going to lecture and deposit, and they weren't going to sit and just receive, but really we wanted to activate their prior learning and ask them to apply it to, that sort of academic space we were creating, as well as contributing to the knowledge of their peers and critiquing, what each other had to say. So there are little moments like that where there was definitely a clash, if you will, between our approaches as faculty and their prior experiences as students within the Haiti context, and sort of trying to work through that in real time.
Yes, and I'll just piggyback off of that. First of all, Jim, Paulo Freire is a personal hero of mine, so it's just such a delight to hear your anecdote. But indeed, I think there were these intercultural moments. And so one takeaway for us is that there needs to be a learner, so-called, for lack of a better term, learner training period. Where learners learn how to learn in this student-centered, active learning way, without presumptions, without judgment, but really to help to facilitate another layer of the sort of learning outcomes. And so I think after about 2 weeks of training, we got on, but it takes time. And so one takeaway is faculty engaging in international partnerships, just like with China, should be aware. I think even here on this side with all learners, it's still a learner training period that's needed for success. So some patience and intercultural knowledge is required.
Yeah, and flexibility too. And I think, again, with this pandemic, we've learned to be flexible with technology. We had some students who were joining our course from their office, from a classroom that was provided by the school, but we had other students who were in a courtyard somewhere on a cell phone with another person just looking. Other people were just engaged in so many different ways. And so we just had to work with background noises, drops in Wi-Fi, hearing other Creole in the background, and just kind of working through it and just pushing through. And so I think, and I'm sure we all know this, but when we're partnering in different contexts, really being flexible in sort of what that experience might be, and being able to just sort of think on your feet and going from there. So online learning in that context is very different than I think what we would traditionally experience in the US context, for sure.
So when you were talking about the Haitian culture, about the traditional mindset for the students, I could relate it so much to my own educational background because I come from Bangladesh, and that is what we have been experienced since childhood, that the teacher is the main person in the classroom, and we are not like it's more like worshiping the person who's teaching us. So we cannot even think about saying something in front of them. So that's what completely changed when I came to Canada, and I came into a collaborative classroom where I got to know that my exposure, my experience, my views are also being valued. So it's so different.
Definitely.
That's right, and I do believe in that intercultural piece. There are
where we really spent a great deal of time trying to. The students really had a tough time actually being courageous to speak in a way, and that was we really spent a great deal of time sort of sharing the, I don't know how to say it actually, but creating a safe space for first draft and being able to speak and not, because honestly, if you're going to do a leadership program where you have research that is action research and wants to improve the world, the people have to have agency to do that. So always being second and below the teacher hierarchically. And one of the things we really did was we were absolutely transparent. This was the first time we're through it. Every mistake we made publicly, and we shared it with the students, and we talked about, because we wanted them to know that when they were doing research as well, they were going to make mistakes. As hard as they worked, as hard as they tried, they're always going to make mistakes. And every mistake we made, we announced and said how we were going to try to fix it and those sort of things. And I think we sort of leveled the hierarchy between teacher and student in that way to somewhat, right? But still, that was an ongoing pedagogical conversation. How do you create a team between the instructor and the students so that everyone is the goal becomes the coaching of this graduate student, the international graduate student, to the end where they're actually doing research that benefits the world, and then sharing it with people too. They're the owner, they're the authority, they're the author of that thing. So that's been an ongoing sort of pedagogical highlight and problem both at the same time, because when I said when we're doing virtual high fives, the people that we've spoken to about their project are they're confident. And that's one thing they all said, we're confident, we know we can do this now. And that was a huge breakthrough. And we are actually beaming, and we know we're doing it too soon because we're going to be shot down soon. But at the same time, for right now, we're feeling really good about where we're at.
What I'm hearing is the need to establish a welcoming and nurturing classroom context first, and then to model vulnerability, because a lot of learning in this way involves risk taking. And so that modeling piece in our case with language was key. But I want to go back once more to how we are socialized cross-culturally. There's a saying in Japan that the nail stands up, gets hammered down. And so, for instance, Japanese students learning in a post-secondary context in the US are hesitant. We may think they're shy or fearful, but really it's an expression of respect. So I think also it would be great to anchor our programmatic designs in some of these anthropological lenses as well, to inform a more culturally responsive approach.
Well, even Marcia had the grandfather in residence. I thought that was brilliant, actually. Yeah.
I was just going to say that again, that initiative was definitely something that was spearheaded by my colleague Maria as she was reaching out to grandfather for support for the students. And again, we just decided to piggyback on that and have that same exposure for our instructors. And I think that I know the focus of this this conference is students, but we do feel that there, and I've heard it from all of you, that there is that education piece that would also come through for instructors. And, you know, in working with international students. And with Amy and Michelle, it's funny, in looking at the program that we currently offer to our international students, we are looking now at providing that upfront support for them prior to, you know, getting involved in the content, because we recognize that those supports are needed. There is that adjustment period, right? The way of learning is different for the majority of the international students. So we do recognize that need to support them, even if it's before they get here. And now, as I think we all see it with remote learning, we can do that. We have that flexibility, right, to do asynchronous and synchronous sessions. So I am glad to see that we're all kind of taking advantage and we're not being scared of remote, right? Initially, I think we were all March 2020. But now I think it sounds like we're all embracing it and seeing the flexibility that it does offer our learners and our instructors.
Indeed, I would just add to that, and sorry to take up too much space, but typically the 1 day or 2 day international student orientation simply cannot cut it. And one takeaway from the pandemic is we can be creative with technology to create something more robust and pre-equip our students for success.
We still have 5 more minutes, so if anyone wants to jump in with any other thoughts or insights, questions.
I think the only other insight I would add, and I think it's consistent with international students I work with in my U.S. Context as well, is definitely having, you know, materials available ahead of time. Because there are students who are like, you know, I need a translator. I want to read it slowly by myself before I'm asked to say it out loud for the first time in English and things like that. So there's little lessons learned here and there to improve each time, so that students can, you know, prepare ahead of time, but then also have the materials to go back and look back at other times.
Yeah, that's a great suggestion. I would be happy if I would get some of my materials before coming here, so absolutely. So are we done for the day? Jim,
No.
you wanted to add something?
One more thing.
Sure,
Rocky
go
did a
ahead.
great job actually pulling this all together and sort of being the, you know, you were gracious and you were strong, and that was very good. So from your perspective, just one last question. What did you take from this? What were your goals in getting this together, and what did you carry away from it? Because I'm very curious about that too, because I really, I mean, as Heather knows, we often talk about building communities of practice, and well, all the presentations were quite different. There is a community of practice here where we can learn from each other, and really the pedagogical thing and thinking like, how do you think to help international students come with their culture into a new culture in a new way? That's a key idea that I think our presentation sort of danced around today. But from your perspective, what did you take away from it?
So one of the key perspectives I would say is the way all the presentations actually focused on welcoming or valuing the experience, the knowledge, the culture, the background, everything that the international students brings in and making them a part of this community. which I personally really, really value, because if I wouldn't be welcome, I don't think so I would be here where I am today, right? So I really value this, and I really value that this is something that all international students should feel, that they are actually wanted in this platform. Their collaboration with the others, their collaboration with the native people is also being valued. So the main problem that all the international students felt all through, like I think from my own experience, is that at times they are shy, at times they feel they won't be valued enough, their thoughts does not matter, or sometimes it's the cultural barrier, as Michelle was talking. Oh, I think it's as Amy was talking, that it is sometimes their culture that is restricting them to come up or open up with whatever thoughts they have. So I feel one of the key takeaways from this platform is the notion of collaborating with your ideas, the notion that your ideas and your knowledge matters to everyone. I myself feel that, and that's the reason why I keep working on building the network and community as much as I can, because I think this would help me build my own space in this new place. So it's just building my second home here.
Yes.
So we are almost at the end of this session. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're most welcome to stay back and join the other presentations that are going on at the symposium. And I would also want to remind you about the extended abstract that are due on the 25th, by the 25th. So it's next week. So please send us the extended abstract for the presentations by the 25th.
Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, thank you so much
everyone.
for joining and sharing your valuable thoughts.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.